Sometimes the conditions are just right. All the elements in place for an out-of-body experience. I used to be a practitioner of astral body projections before coming to the new presentation, for that was my thrill, you might say, of launching myself into the psych realms without the slightest consideration as to what or who would be out there, and rather naive to the potential perils and hazards of such practices. I really had no knowledge or references for where exactly I was going back then. I just had the personal self-assumption that there was the physicality of the body vehicle, that I had some soul or essence within it, and it was this soul that I could propel from the vehicle into these crazy realms beyond. For yes, I would encounter many a strange world, and all manner of curious beings, aliens, and individuals. When being selected by the real guides, for we all are chosen for the privilege of becoming more aware and an opportunity to attempt a recognitional journey of the true reality, we evidently are ready for such an undertaking, for the real guides move among all individuals unseen, seeking those who exhibit risk-taking, those who reach for more than the social consciousness and environment they have found themselves in. Duane would give the analogy of a ripe fruit ready for picking. The real awareness of the individual deciding to recognize itself and the is that it is a part of, and even though a disconnect would still be present between the real self and its personal self-creation, this real intent has filtered through and motivates the personal self to risk-take, to do what most will not, to explore and stretch beyond the limited, restricted creational bubble it has found itself in through its decisions and choices. I would have suggested then that my astral projections were the green light for the guides, for this was really the last thing I was focused on before finding the new presentation. That I was guided to find it was very apparent, for it simply hadn't been on my radar up until that moment. As though the new presentation only comes into your experience when you are ready to receive it. Until then, it's almost as though it doesn't exist in your decided upon personal self-bubble reality, and even should you stumble upon it, if you are not ready, you can't see anything in it. For your personal self can't see beyond its self-convinced construction, and anything that pertains to something other than creation is beyond its literal ability to grasp. This indicates that any interest in the true reality must stem from the real awareness, the real you, and its decision to begin a recognition of the is. A decision the personal self won't make without this nudge from the real awareness that animates it. When the real education and references would become known to me, I would learn of the structure of the psych realms of creation, the real universes, and determine that my out-of-body projections had been rather limited to the personal side of the real side, and only on the astral predominantly. I would learn of the inherent risks of such practices, how you can puncture holes in your aura, rendering yourself more vulnerable, and allow access into your physical level experience to all manner of entities, beings, etc. How your cord can be severed by these characters also, for as you project the bodies, you are attached to your physical body in this way. I can certainly testify to the presence of invading entities, for I would continue astral projecting for a time, even as I began my process of becoming more aware. A transition from a personal self-thrill-seeking to real awareness process that would gradually have me let go of this hazardous body-projecting pastime. Through becoming more aware, I would perceive more through my real awareness than I could with the limited faculties of the personal self, and see these portals for myself, portals created through this astral projection practice that entities would make use of. And yes, this probably always was so, but the evidence of their existence unavailable to the limited perceptions of the encasement agreement bubbles of the personal self. For I would spend the next several years, despite abandoning the astral projections overall, dealing with entities. Many of such experiences I have recounted on the Skypes over the years. For the effects of what we decide through the creationally based personal self always show up. They may take years, maybe lifetimes, but they are set in motion, and in accordance with the cause-to-effect nature of the simulators. All that we decide and activate through the experience-generating personal self-vehicles, as according to their design, will be situations we will have to deal with, situations that equal and reflect the decisions and choices, focus and intent that we have decided upon. So astral projections are valid experiences. Everything in creation is experience, and all experience provides more viewpoints and comparisons by which we can recognize the is-by. Everything that is in creation, regardless of what it is a reference and comparison for what the isn't. And becoming more aware is just that, seeing more of this real awareness that we are, to the point that we become all aware, and then is the task of recognizing the is through that real awareness. The real awareness, however, is aside from creation. The real awareness is this isness, and we are endeavoring to become more aware of this real awareness that we are, and through that we can oversee all of creation and all that makes up our created personal selves, a place where we are no longer the unconscious effects of anything, and we can consciously choose and decide what we will. So, people can be aware of their created self, their creational decided upon and agreed with environment, and this agreement through the personal self extends to the real side. We are as much locked into illusionary personal self reality bubbles there as we are on the physical, until we connect with our real awareness and start to see through the personal self, to see what is real beyond our decided upon illusions. Astral projections then would fall into the category of a personal self and creational awareness. Yes, we would become aware of more, expanding what we thought we knew, what we were self-convinced about, but we are still limited to our decided and agreed upon personal self-reality bubbles, even as we venture onto the astral. The heavens of man are a prime example, their entire construction an actuality based on agreement through the personal self, an illusion of decision. Becoming more aware of our real awareness is seeing beyond the limitation of what we have decided through the personal self, and the real side experiences then reflect this as a far greater arena of exploration, and allow that we gradually see things more for what they actually are, and not what we have decided them to be. Intent is reflected on the real side, and if we step completely into the real intent of our real awareness, then the real side is a reflection of this real intent, absent of any personal self additional content. It would be a reflection then of our real awareness. Through real awareness, we will see these portals, entities, and the darkness that is engulfing the psych realms of creation. It certainly is not the delightful fantasy realm, with its designated heavens of splendour we have up until now agreed to. But anyway, as I said at the beginning, sometimes the conditions are just right for out-of-body travel. Very often it will occur automatically, as according to a routine through which I used to frequently practice such. Although I don't consciously seek such experiences, due to their more limiting nature, sometimes they just occur, but often will transform into real side experiences anyway, or at the very least can provide insights and viewpoints and verifications of that which is being presented through the new presentation. On this occasion, I would detach from my physical vehicle. Every time you out-of-body travel, you will invariably begin at the location you launched from, and wherever it is will be replicated on the real side. Then you walk beyond a certain threshold point, and the replicated starting point fades away, and into the psych realms you will be. This would explain how ghosts frequent the same limited location. For them it would be a similar situation, a replicated physical level environment of where they transitioned, and to move them beyond a certain threshold point would have them able to move on to their next position. I have found also that through my greater awareness now, that I have on occasion found that I can be on the astral and manipulate the physical environment from it. The physical environment that is the starting point of such out-of-body excursions. Seems to me again, this manipulation of the physical from the astral is limited to this starting replicated environment, at least through this out-of-body situation, and we see such activity and ability with poltergeists, those ghosts that cause havoc on the physical. Interesting how poltergeists seem to be common around young children. I would suggest many of the poltergeists in those situations are more the child naturally astral projecting and unknowingly manipulating from the astral onto the physical. For on this occasion I would bang my astral vehicle fist on the walls of my physical house, and this would result in my parents waking up in the adjacent room on the physical. From here I would float down the stairs and pass through the walls of my replicated house starting point, go beyond the threshold boundary, and into the psych realms beyond. The astral was immersed in its usual gloomy darkness, for my real awareness can see how the psych realms actually are, despite this being an out-of-body projection, a simulator in agreed-upon demise, exhibiting the telltale symptoms of this deterioration, an encroaching, all-encompassing psych realm darkness. I peered through the gloom and saw a few houses close to my location. A few had lights on inside. Feeling in a sociable mood, I would approach the nearest lighted house and pass through the walls. No such limitation of illusionary physicality restriction here, unless you decide and agree it is so. I came across a family, a mother and several young children. A little surprised were they at first on my visit, but we soon became acquainted and conversed for a time. Seems this family were rather destitute here on the astral, but my real awareness afforded me insight and information regarding a facility in this realm where items of great value were stored. It was a kind of military facility of a kind, or something official, and naturally no one would be able to simply march in without confrontation. However, I told the mother that I had the ability here to pass through walls, and assured her that I could rectify her lack of wealth situation by stealing some of this facility's items. She agreed, and the scene switched. We were standing now beside a wall of the facility, and as she and her family watched on, I walked through the wall and returned, brandishing a box of curious metal cubes of various sizes. Apparently these were of great worth, according to my real awareness. The bigger the cube, the more its value, and I gave these to the mother. The total worth would be the equivalent of several $1 million on the physical. As far as I was concerned, I was just participating in a cause and effect decided upon situation, fulfilling an opening, a role that had become available. Nothing can feature in our experience unless we decide and agree to it, and what we decide, what we focus on, creates the circumstances and the opening for individuals to step in and assume a role in the experience we have projected through our choices and intent. In this case, it's rather conceivable that this mother had focused on the need and want for additional finances. With everything in creation, if we want something, we generally can't just sit there and focus on it and hope it will fall into our lap. We can create anything we desire, but much of the time it requires activation of certain steps and stages to come into a physical actuality. If we want a new car, we rather need go through the necessary stages to acquire one. We need raise the finances and go to the car sales places. A car simply won't manifest on our driveways one day. But on occasion, as in this case, an individual projecting a causality into a creation is potentially opening herself up to the effect along the lines of what is being focused on, and things can drop out of the sky as a result. This is probably how what seem to be random individuals can suddenly feature in our experiences, and not necessarily in a beneficial way. For most of what we are creating, thought-wise, is subconscious, or if we are conscious of it, we are recklessly churning out thought and emotion without an understanding of the effects that we are creating and will be subjected to, and indeed restricted by, as we constantly lay out a road of experience that keeps us in creation. Individuals can, as an idea example, project thoughts of self-pity or lack of worth, inadvertently deciding on cause and effect experiences along these reflected lines. Even though most people are unaware and unconscious by and large, they will be drawn to certain experiences that others have created, that mirror and are in alignment with their own decided upon choices and way of being. If an individual harbours notions and thoughts of being a victim, they will create the experience that mirrors this consideration, and the individuals that have decided and chosen to be knuckleheads and bullies will very likely find themselves participating in the victim's chosen experience to play the role of that which has been made available through the individual's decision to experience being victimized. The reptilians are very adept at such ways, for they will investigate the Akashic records of individuals and determine those they can potentially assassinate, simply due to the created cause and effect consciousness of an individual that will allow such a scenario to be. In this situation, then, this mother had laid out the effect potentiality for an intervention into her affairs, along the lines of assisting her with her financial issues, and my real awareness had perhaps then determined this potentiality of intervention, as the real awareness oversees all of creation, and can see all the particulars and facets of it. So in I stepped, and assisted her, featuring in her experience, as she had provided through her decision and focus, the role that an individual could take if they so chose. This would be a similar situation with how the real guides are able to assist us on our process of becoming more aware, in that they can do nothing for us. They can't feature in our experience unless we agree to their assistance and guidance, and thus the potentiality is there for the guides to provide our real side demonstrations and continued sharings that we can become more aware through. For free will is always a constant, and it is simply that we decide our experience and every aspect and facet of it, and we can see then that there are no accidents, mistakes, coincidences, or injustices, for we are the decider of our experience always. And yes, individuals will enter our experiences, but the extent to which they can, the roles they take, is completely dependent upon our decisions also. It's like we are making our movies and adding the various parts and roles potential actors can take within them. Ultimately, we can see then how real awareness is automatic protection, as through it we stand in a position where we are no longer churning out endless and mainly unconscious potentialities for individuals to assume the roles of attackers in our decided upon experiences. We are standing aside from the cause and effect stage of creation, and now we are conscious and in complete control of what, if anything, we set into motion. As such, the more we release the personal self-attachments and agreements, and the tap-line agreements from our created consciousness that we are unaware and unconscious of, old agreements that can constantly be forging the potentiality of dire situations and attacks, then no individual can take the opportunity to assume the roles of our assailants that we have set the stage for. And we can more and more traverse the real side without risk or concern, brush through all the mayhem, and step around all the tyrants and the ill-intended, safe in the knowledge that if an individual does try and force an attack, if there is a tiny degree of agreement that allows that they can, then they will receive far greater karmic cause and effect backlash for their troubles. For as we become more aware, our vulnerability to attack is lessened, due to the reducing agreement that we can be attacked, and this is expressed with our increasing ability to put down any assault on the real side by whatever means necessary. And so we begin to appreciate how it is we, who are deciding and maintaining agreement that facilitates attack, and this is a valuable lesson in and of itself, and the real guides are there, but often will allow us to handle the situations we after all have created for ourselves, but be assured they will step in if things get too much to handle, and I've experienced many examples of this. For we become better adept and capable if allowed the opportunity to deal with our creations, and that capability is through our real awareness, the automatic protection that is through our stepping beyond any possibility of individuals being able to infringe on our experience. For we are beyond the cause and effect creational simulator arena that our would-be assailants are deciding to remain limited to, and are resigned to only be able to operate in. And Duane has said that often the real guides will allow us to be attacked, for now the assailants have taken on karma that the guides can then use as leverage to regulate the behaviours of the dark forces, to the extent that they can even be thrown into the phantom zone for their ill deeds.